Welcome to this week's American Hunter Whitetail Hunting Tip. I'm standing on the edge of one of my food plots here. It's about that time of the year where we start thinking about early season hunting, the locations where we do that, and some of the challenges that we face in that style of hunting. So I want to take you through what I think is probably some of the trickiest hunting that you're going to do all season. And that's the hunting that you do along the edges of these small food plots. And ideally, during the early season, you can find that place where the deer are most actively feeding, because that's where your chances are going to be the best for killing one. During the rut, there's a whole lot of other strategies that you can use, but early in the season, and then again real late in the season, it's really all about the food. If you find the food, you're going to find the deer. So I've got some food here, but the tricky part is, how do you get the deer within range if I'm hunting with a bow? And how do you get away from that spot at the end of legal shooting time without educating the deer that are coming out there to feed? So it doesn't do you any good, unless you kill a deer the very first time in, it doesn't do you any good to hunt a spot and then bump all the deer off the field when you climb down to leave, because they're going to be a lot smarter and a lot more careful coming back to that spot again in the future. And you need them to be moving naturally, so they're more likely to be moving in daylight. The more educated they get, the less likely they are to move during daylight. And that's going to make it really tough, obviously, to kill one of them with a bow. So you need to have probably a separate entry and an exit route, unless the situation sets up just perfect. The spot that I'm standing on here, it really has both of these challenges in play. The only really decent tree stand around this whole plot is in this oak tree off to my left. And it really, the way that this sets up, it's really a good bow shot away from the food plot. And there's a lane that runs past it, you know, where deer might funnel past that tree, and once in a while you'll get deer that'll come the full length of the plot, and then they'll work through that switchgrass and go into the cover on the other side. Once in a while you get deer that come out on that side and come past the tree as they come in. So it really features that number one challenge is, how do you get a deer within bow range when you're hunting a fairly decent sized food plot, or agricultural field for that matter. It might be, you know, a cornfield or a soybean field or something like that that's on the farm that you hunt. It's not actually a food plot, it's a commercial agricultural field. The easiest way to hunt these effectively with a bow is to put a blind in the middle. And we could do that here, and we've considered it. We do like to have some spots where we hunt out of trees, but the best way to hunt a small food plot like this is to put a blind right in the middle of it. And if the blind is fairly well sealed up, where the windows close down fairly tightly against an airtight gasket and the door closes down fairly tightly, you can keep almost all of your scent inside, because the wind hits the blind and blows around it, so it doesn't pick up your scent as it's moving through. So your body doesn't really have that scent pulled off it like it would if the wind was able to hit it. So even though there's air maybe that leaks out of the blind, it's not as saturated with your scent as the air that sort of hits your body and pulls the scent right on through. So that's something to keep in mind. You can have deer almost all around you when you're hunting out of a ground blind in a food plot, and they're not going to spook, they're not going to pick up the fact that you're out there. But that doesn't change challenge number two, and that's, how do you get out of there at the end of legal shooting time? The only way that really works effectively when you've got a blind in a food plot like that is to have somebody come to the edge of the plot, drive up, maybe honk the horn on their vehicle, make some noise, you know, give the deer plenty of early warning, come up and then bump them off the field, just sort of more naturally, like a farmer would, or a landowner that was coming out to, you know, do whatever they do in the evening. The deer are more used to that sort of human activity, and they'll drift off the field, and then you can sneak out and get out of there. And I've had really good success doing that. I've been able to hunt even small spots like this multiple times in a row, as long as I had somebody drive in and bump the deer off so I could get out of there. So keep that in mind. If you don't have the option though of having somebody come and scare the deer off, you're gonna have to have a little bit better setup. And that's why this tree is where it is. If we had the blind, or if we had the food plot coming right to the edge of that tree, we'd have a lot more deer right around us. We're about 25 to 30 yards away from the edge of the food plot, hoping to pick up the stragglers coming along the edge. But at the end of legal shooting time, it's not that hard to climb down the back side of that big oak tree, and I've mowed a path that goes all around that grassy, brushy field and back to my vehicle. I can get out of that tree at the end of legal shooting time without educating or alerting any deer that are out in the plot. So it's really a trade-off. If you want to be right in the middle of the action, you're gonna have to put a blind in the plot. Or you gotta have a really small food plot that you can cover the whole thing from one tree. But then you've got to have somebody lined up to come and bump the deer off at the end of legal shooting time. If you don't have somebody, then you've got to back off and you've got to play that trade-off where every deer that comes out isn't going to be within bow range. So keep those two things in mind, play those trade-offs. If you try to do it any other way, I'm pretty sure that you're going to mess it up. I've tried everything that you can possibly try to hunt these small spots effectively without doing it the way that I just described, and I haven't come up with a solution yet. So hopefully you have a good week, and we'll be coming back again next week with another tip for you right here at AmericanHunter.org.